When the time is right, you'll know. I'm Rob Murgatroyd, and I can hear the voice inside your head from here. You're ready for your next chapter, but you're unclear on what that looks like and how to make it happen. On the Next Chapter podcast, you'll be inspired to let go of your current identity and shift into a brand new chapter of your life that makes you feel alive. The struggles you're facing now will be substantiated by success stories that'll feel like your own. You'll walk away with tangible strategies backed by experiential evidence that will bring your next chapter to life. Your next chapter is achievable, and it's closer than you think. Today, I want to talk to anyone who is at that 30-year-old and beyond mark. So I'm reading a great book by a Harvard professor named Arthur Brooks, and it's called From Strength to Strength. And I think it's an incredibly relevant book to someone seeking out their next chapter. And here's why. The book is largely based off of research that a guy named Raymond Cattell did in the 70s. And he proposed that human beings have two types of intelligence: fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. All right, so let me break those down for you, and it'll make sense why I think this is important as it relates to someone's next chapter. So just by definition, fluid intelligence is the ability to think flexibly, creatively, and to solve new problems. And crystallized intelligence is the ability to use a stock of knowledge, a bunch of knowledge that you've learned in the past. So what that means is younger brains, let's call it 30 and younger, tend to have an abundance of this fluid intelligence, while older brains, let's call it beginning over 30, have a majority of this crystallized intelligence. So in short, when you're young, you have this raw smarts. And when you're old, you have wisdom. And when you're young, you can do things like generate a lot of facts. When you're old, you know what to do with those facts. You know what those facts mean. So why is it important? Well, I can tell you as a 56-year-old guy that physical decline is real and it is unavoidable. Okay, as much as I can't put enough Botox in me to stop this. So the truth is, fast athletes just get slower. You know, there's no two ways around it. But his research shows that we also get smarter and we get more skillful as we move past 30. So the good news is that as that first curve starts to decline at around 30 years old, we can actively choose to jump onto that second wave, that second curve of crystallized intelligence as early as 30, as opposed to continue to clutch onto that first curve and never let it go. So here's an example that this is how I see it while I was reading the book. It's kind of like when I was living in LA, we'd go to these restaurants and we'd see, it's like the plastic surgery capital of the world. And we'd see these women that my wife and I would see these women that are like, 75 or 80 years old. And we'd look at each other and go, are they 20 or 80? They were just holding on to that youth with, or attempting to hold on to that youth with plastic surgery. But they really look like, they're entering the Earth's atmosphere. When you look at their face, they're just not willing to let it go. So when it comes to your next chapter, if you could repurpose your professional life to rely more on crystallized intelligence, then Brooks, the author, says you've cracked the code. So think about your next chapter as stepping more into a teacher mode or a professor mode. Your strength in the second half of your life is less about innovation and doing things like startups and, you know, more about having more instruction, right? So knowing this for me makes me really happy personally because I really struggle with seeing all of my friends who are building companies and feeling like, that's what I should be doing. But I've started to notice that my friends who started building their companies when they were younger, they were so freaking excited. Like they were so passionate about it. And I have seen with some of them who still are, at that stage where they're, maybe getting ready to sell it or just in the throes of building the company towards, let's say, an exit. They don't seem happy to me. Somehow they've lost it. And, the signal for me is that burnout that they're in. And I think it's largely because they have left, let's say they're in their 40s or approaching 50. They're still hungry for that innovation, but they're not getting it because they're no longer in that stage that they once were. And so instead of jumping onto that second stage, many of them who even exit don't want to jump onto that second stage. They want to stay in that first curve, let's call it. I'm interchanging stage and curve. So for me, right now at this stage of my life, teaching feels really good for me, which is probably why I decided to start this podcast, Next Chapter. And I'm gravitating to doing things like, this solo episode that I'm having with you right now. So I think the lesson is to proactively jump on that second curve and get the rewards that come from that instead of trying to get the rewards that come from that fluid intelligence stage. So I would strongly recommend picking up this book and thinking through these two curves. And let me know what you think. I kind of like have this theory that there's nature, nurture, and neighborhood. Nature, you can't really do a whole lot about, kind of just the way you were born. And nurture, you really can't do a whole lot about either. It's how your parents raised you. But neighborhood largely dictates how you think about things or what's important to you. And, when I was in LA, I was triggered by all the people around me that are constantly wanting to innovate. But there was a part of me that was feeling like I wanted something different. And I listened to that. And that's how we wound up moving here to Florence. And one of the ways that I think that it's probably a bit easier for me now to step into this second curve is my mind is stimulated in different ways here in Florence by the art and the culture and the people that are here. And I don't feel as much of a need to be validated by my accomplishments anymore, like you get in the first, like the first curve suggests. And I think if I was still in LA, that would not be the case. I think if I saw the flashy cars and the flashy houses, and I think I would be continually wanting to step into that world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a group of people together. And if you want to join us, I would love to have you. We're going to bring a group of people together here in Florence to hang out in the fall and experience things like I've been talking about here, this sort of like second curve of life. And we're going to, it's not going to be a big event where it's, like I do my work hard, play hard events or my platinum events. This is going to be just stepping into art, culture, food, and taking you to the places that we found to be incredibly exciting for us. So if you want to get on that early alert list, just click the link in the show notes. All right, so that's it. So go grab that book. I think you really like it. Again, it's called From Strength to Strength, and it's by Arthur Brooks. That's it for this week, and I will see you next week. Have a great week, everybody. Become part of my inner circle and unlock uncensored, deeper, more personal content that will help you design your dream life and effortlessly navigate your next chapter. Click the Patreon link below for instant access to our premium community and get exclusive content and monthly live workshops and coaching.